Good morning, everybody. It is about 7:48, 12 minutes to 8 a.m. this Tuesday morning. And, well, as you can probably see by the picture, I'm here to talk about 225 because yesterday, 225 sure stirred up a lot of news. Sure did. Because you see, folks, yesterday, 225 apparently arrived in the mail for some people. It's true. 225 apparently arrived in the mail for some people yesterday. And believe it or not, these people that got their advanced copy live on the East Coast. But that's not all, folks. That's not all. You see, these people may live on the East Coast, and you may expect people maybe in New York, within the New York area, New York regions, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and all that to get it early. But this person that got it early, they live in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. And this person got so excited about it that although they're a member on Ian Flynn's Bumble King forum, Ian Flynn has asked them to discreetly do not spoil. Hold on for a second. Sorry about that. I had to let the cat back in the house. But like I was saying, Ian Flynn has discreetly asked this person, along with a few other people who have gotten the issue, to not spill the beans just yet. He's asked this person and these other people that have gotten their advanced copies to hold out until at least Wednesday. Because Wednesday is when we get the preview pages for this issue. But unfortunately, folks, somebody did spill the beans. Now, I know you're going to start pointing fingers and everything, but believe me, it wasn't me. It wasn't me because honestly, folks, I'm not that way. I mean, I'm somebody that will read the summary after somebody like Chaos Control 14 gets their issue and then post the summary. I'll read that. But I'm not the kind of person that's going to come out. I'm not the kind of person, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to come out and spill the beans over something huge. Yeah, I do my video audio reviews of the comic, but I live here in California, and I usually get my issue about a week or so later. I mean, I'll be lucky at times if I get my issue that very week, but I usually get my issue a week or so later. But folks, let me explain what I'm talking about. You see, the person who spilled the beans is somebody that got access to the scans and the summary that one of these subscribers that got the early advanced issue gave him. Now, it's not, from what I understand, it's not the same person, because this person that gave their summary and posted their scans to somebody, basically the person that basically the way I found out about it, folks, was somebody at somebody who will remain nameless at the Sega.com cartoon comics section of the message board said that he had gotten in contact with somebody on the Bumble King forums, and I saw who this was, and again, that person as well will remain anonymous until a time well set, but that person gave the person on the Sega.com forum information about what happens because the person on the Sega.com forums is also a member on the Bumble King forums. So the person that's a member on both forums wanted to give the information just like the person at the Bumble King forums. But unfortunately, due to Ian asking and requesting on his forum that nobody spill the beans till tomorrow, that's it. What these two individuals actually on both forums have done is they said, hey, you want to know what's going to happen? You want to know whose life's going to hang in the balance? You want to know the character who's going to be on death's door? Just PM me here on the message board and I will tell you everything. And folks, that's what I did. I PM'd the person at the Sega.com forums. They showed me the scans. They showed me the summary. But folks, I'm telling you right now, honest to God, I did not spill the beans on the Sega.com forums. No. You see, the person that spilled the beans on the Sega.com forums is somebody that's had a reputation for being kind of... basically, this person has a reputation for being sort of a... I don't know how you call him. A resident, if you will, of the Sonic community. Let's just put it this way. The guy's has been a resident of the Sonic community, the fan base, since the days of SatAM. Now that person goes by two names here on YouTube. Knothole Resident and Mr. Chickmunk Mobian. Yes, I'm talking about the ever well-known, the ever popular, and sometimes mostly unpopular Richard Kuta. That's right, Richard Kuta, the one that has come out of the closet, said he's not afraid to show that he wears diapers to bed and all that. One of the biggest fans out there, the person that's trying to create and release an animated Sonic fan film, is the one that spilled the beans on the Sega.com forums. Now, some of you here on YouTube are members of those forums, of the Sega.com forums, of the Sonic Stadium forums, the Saturday Morning Sonic forums, and the SatAM Sonic forums. Some of you are members of all those forums, including the Bumble King forums. Now, I can't put the entire blame on Richard. I cannot do that. Because there is one other person at the SatAM Sonic.com forums that spilled the beans as well. So I can't totally put fault on Richard, even though he was the first one to spill the beans. Now again, some of you may have seen these scans already, because like I said, most of you are members of a lot of these forums. You may already know what's happened due to your membership to these forums. But for those that don't, I am telling you right now to turn down the volume, because I am going to talk about what everybody else knows. And if you do not want to be spoiled, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest right now to turn the volume down or to turn this video off, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what happens in this issue. Basically what the summary has given us and what everybody is up in arms about right now, either in a positive, negative, or neutral way, or an unsure way. So, countdown right now, 10 seconds, turn down your volumes or click off this video if you do not want to be spoiled. Countdown, 10 seconds to shut down this video or turn down the volume if you do not want to be spoiled. Starting now, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, for those of you that are listening to this video that probably know what I know already from yesterday, hopefully by now those that do not want to be spoiled have turned the volume down or have turned this video off so we could talk without them being spoiled and give them at least a chance to be surprised. Alright, folks. For some of us here on YouTube that are members of a majority of these forums that I talked about, a lot of us are kind of confused. Honestly, a lot of us are very much confused. We don't know what's going on. Some of us are probably jumping up and down in joy with the fact that the character that has been announced to be on death's door or have their life hanging in the balance is Sally. I'm sure a lot of fans out there that don't like Sally or just want her out of the way because, she's becoming what they call Mary Sue, are happy at the fact that she's finally probably being offed out. Or off the book, if you will. Offed out of the book. But folks, there are other people that are confused. Other people are confused because they're not really sure what's going on. They're not really sure if they should believe Ian Flynn for a second in what he's doing. Some people are arguing the fact that Ian is such a fanboy of this character that he's going to find a way to bring her back. Well, believe it or not, folks, Ian has already proven that just because you think you know him doesn't mean you know him that well. I mean, when you take a look at Sonic Universe 28, no one saw Janica, a.k.a. Lawler Sue, turning into the first ever female and good Urajak. In other words, the first female and angelic Urajak. Nobody saw that coming. And when people first heard about it, they were pissed. But then when they found out she was going to be good, some of them kind of changed the tone. So just because some people think Ian's such a fanboy of the character that he's going to keep her alive, don't underestimate him. He may prove you wrong. Because you see, somebody here on the YT told me that Ian was kind of surprised that Sega gave their approval for what happens in this issue. Now, for some of you that probably didn't read what I posted on the forums, individually and together, this is basically what I said about what happened. First of all, I addressed what Richard did. And I admit, even again, as I will quote here, Richard shouldn't have done what he did, but he did. And if Ian finds out, which I'm pretty sure Ian already has, he will be pissed off at him, Richard Kuta, more than he has been pissed off at folks like me and you. Now, again, Richard shouldn't have done what he did. I mean, I know Richard's a Sally fan. Let me be perfectly honest. He's a Sally fan, there's no doubt. He's got a Sally plush. I've got a Sally plush. I do. But let me explain something, folks. You don't go out of your way, if you will. Hold on for a second, I want to drag this in here. But folks, you don't go out of your way, if you will. You don't go out of your way, if you will, to spoil something like Richard did, just because you're upset at the possibility of one of your all-time favorite characters being killed. You don't do that because you don't know all the details. And you know what? Neither does anybody else. No one really knows what's going on. No one knows what Ian's doing. But there are some that have pretty much figured out or have an idea of what Ian's doing with this issue, and Genesis included, and afterwards. There are people over at the SatAM Sonic forums. SatAM Sonic forums. There's some people, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but a few people over at the Sega forums. And I'm pretty sure when word really starts to get out, people at the Sonic Stadium forums, the Saturday Morning Sonic forums, and even the Bumble King forums, they're going to seriously doubt what's going on. Even though, for some of us that saw those scans already, even though some of us may point out a shadowy figure on the ground, or a shadowy figure in the doorway, we can't assume that that's Sally. We can't assume that's her corpse. We can't assume that's her dead body or her wounded body. We can't assume that. Because, folks, if we assume, then we're going to be wrong. But, folks, we can assume and be wrong, but we can also try to figure things out. We could try to piece pieces of the puzzle together. Now, after I addressed the fact that, Richard Kuntat shouldn't have done what he did, I basically came out and said that since the cat's out of the egg, so to speak, because as like I said before I started talking about this, I had some people that don't want to be spoiled turn the volume down and turn the video off. Or I asked them to anyway. But I said, and I quote in one of my posts on the Sega forums, and I quote, since the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, this is from one of my posts, who's to say she, Sally, is dead? Did we see a dead body? No. Did we see a dead hand? No. All we saw was broken goggles and heard a blam blam sound. Who's to say she, Sally, didn't duck when being fired on and the blast hit the goggles instead? Folks, and again, this is from my first posting at the Sega forums, and this is a part of a whole post at the SatAM Sonic and Saturday Morning Sonic forums. I continued, folks, we have seen this many times in comics, in movies, and shows alike. It's called a cliffhanger. And going into Genesis will possibly help answer that cliffhanger. Now, what I mean by that first individual post, and that whole post that you can find at SatAMSonic.com and SaturdayMorningSonic.com, what I mean by that, folks, is that Genesis may give us some answers, maybe some clues as to what's going on. I mean, some of us, probably, some of us may have not said much yet because Ian has requested that we don't. But I'm pretty sure a lot of us that have seen these scans on these message boards, a lot of us have probably seen, folks, the outcome in our minds of what's to happen. And I'm sorry for the pause there. But we've already probably seen in our minds the outcome. Now Ian has come out and has said that what's going to follow after 225 in Genesis is going to be something double the length of the Iron Dominion. Now, basically what that means is we got 2 years worth of a story arc. Big old thing. Now, if you look at the Mobius Wikipedia board, the Archie Mobius Wikipedia board, or Wikipedia site, the last issue that they have updated on there, but have yet to put any synthesis, any plot summary, any cover on, is 250. So basically, what Ian is saying, or trying to hook us onto, is that the possible upcoming story arc is going to last until 250. So basically, for officially starting in 230 and going all the way into 250 for 20 months, basically, after the whole Genesis deal. For 20 months, we'll have to deal with the fact of one story arc. We will not know what's going on. Now, again, we cannot underestimate Ian because he has proven already that just because we think we know what he's going to do doesn't mean we do. Now, I also explained later on in one of my other posts, but again, you can see all these posts together at the websites I talked about. Again, I'll put this whole thing in the description box, believe me. But again, I said to Richard, because I responded to him this time, I said, Richard, and this is my second post on the Sega forums, I said, Richard, you shouldn't have spoiled things. I know how you feel. When Endgame began back in 97, the one that led into issue 50, I felt the same way, because that's when we thought Sally was going to die. But that was then, this is now. And being a longtime reader, this is me continuing to talk to Richard, and being a longtime reader and subscriber of the book, I've kind of have an idea how things in one issue to a multi-issue in one issue stories to multi-issue stories are going to pan out. Basically, what I'm saying to Richard is, being a longtime subscriber and reader of the book, like myself and many others of you out there are, we pretty much have an idea of what's going to happen in the next issue. We pretty much have an idea, but recently, maybe we don't. Then I continue on with my response to Richard. I said, another thing. Because this is me, again, my second post to Richard. I said, another thing, Richard. Despite how you feel about Ian Flynn right now, you have to remember that he, too, was once a fan of the comic. So put yourself in his shoes as a fan, in the position he's currently in, as head writer of the comic book. And ask yourself this. How would I write the 225th anniversary issue of Sonic and tie it in with the 20th anniversary of the overall franchise? So basically what I'm asking Richard to do, and anybody else that reads that post, is put yourself in Ian Flynn's shoes right now. How would you want to tie in the 225th anniversary issue of the comic book, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records, as the longest running comic book based on a video game franchise? How would you tie that in to the overall 20th anniversary of the overall franchise? How would you do that? I also told Richard in my second post, I said, and remember, Sally's not the only character being possibly affected by this. Other characters are too. And ask yourself one more thing. And this is me finishing up my second posting and my response to Richard. I said, and ask yourself one more thing. If she's dead, that being Sally, then why did Bates and Amiss say she was going to be fine? And also, if she's dead, why is she in Genesis? Now, some people may argue the fact that that's just for the Genesis story arc. Well, according to the description for 225, 225 is the prelude to Genesis. And from what I saw in those scans and from what's described in the summary that me and some of you here on YT already got for the fact that you may be members of these boards, basically, a lot of you feel it's very similar to 0 Hour in DC Comics, that is. And I said, and I closed this by saying, I'm just saying, Richard, think about it. Now, basically what I told Richard there is, hey, I know you're upset. I felt the same way when I thought Sally was dead in 97, but that wasn't the case. I also told, and again, I told Richard, hey, I know how you feel, but you have to understand, what would you do if you were Ian? How would you do things? How would you write things? How would you tie in the comic book? You see, Richard, along with anybody else that probably feels the same way about as he does, has to realize how they have to ask themselves, how would you tie in the most popular comic book based on a video game ever that's in the Guinness Book of World Records? How would you tie it in with the overall franchise that it's based on for their anniversary? How would you do that? You'd have to find some way. Now in closing, I put one last post on the Sega forums, and again, this is overall post at both SaturdayMSonic.com and Saturday Morning Sonic. I basically told somebody, I can't think who it is right now, but somebody was some people, and I'll mention a few names because, like I said, this is for people that probably already know about this by now. Red Menace and a few others. Red Menace and a few others. I think Grandmaster Galvatron or something like that. Maybe not Grandmaster Galvatron, but Red Menace, Double X, Miko, Double X, and a few others that are kind of confused by what's going on. Well, people like myself, Mistress Ali, over at the SaturdayM Sonic forums, SaturdayMSonic.com message boards, as well as Grandmaster Galvatron at the Sega forums, we all have pretty much an idea, or have an idea of what's really going on. And in my final post that I put there, my final detailed post, I said, again, and this is the last one I did, I said, again, nothing has been set in stone. Besides, in the Newsarama interview that Ian did, which you can see a video, which you can find here on my channel, I did a video on that, which Ian Flynn did, it states, not a death, but life hanging in the balance. So in other words, we're not told a character's going to die, we're just told a character's life's hanging in the balance. So again, and this is from my last post on the Sega forums, so again, it goes back to being a cliffhanger issue. Now here's what I use for an example when it comes to that. I said in my final post on the Sega forums, as I continue, it's sort of like what the final Harry Potter movies are right now. Part 1 of The Deathly Hallows was released in November. Part 2 is going to be released this fall. I think in June, I believe. And then another example of a movie that's going to be concluded in 2 individual parts, but in a further release dates, is the Twilight movies. I said, and I basically what I said here is that I said, and this is the whole quote from using the Harry Potter and Twilight movies, I said, sort of what the final Harry Potter movies are right now. Part 1 was released in November. Part 2 will be this summer. And what the final upcoming Twilight films will be like. Part 1 of the final Twilight film, or the final Twilight story overall, Part 1 of it will be released in November of this year. Part 2 will be released in November of 2012, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but what I read on Wikipedia and what I've read online, those are the scheduled release dates for the final story in the Twilight series. Then I go on to say that if you want, in my final post, I said in my final post, if you want a better example, try television series finales. That's right, try series finales on television that end in cliffhangers, then conclude in the series premiere the following fall. That is what this Genesis or 225 is like. Basically, 225, I've said this before, is like a television series finale, or it's like the final Harry Potter story and the final Twilight story. The first part ends in cliffhangers. The series finales, or the series not series finales, but season finales. I should have put season, but you know what I'm saying. End in finales, but they always conclude in the following year. So in other words, let's say Let's take, for example, one of the most popular 1 hour drama series on television. Let's take Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy, let's say if they want to continue on for a few more seasons, that they end. Let's say if they want Grey's Anatomy wanted to continue on for a few more seasons. Let's say they wanted to end one of those seasons on a cliffhanger. Then conclude it the following year. That's what they've done before. That's what they've done before. As a matter of fact, for some of you that may have a Netflix account, that's what Cheers did one season with Sam and Rebecca. They ended one of the season finales. One of the seasons ended with a finale and then concluded the following year. Get what I'm saying? The same with George Lopez. George Lopez, when he did his show on ABC, the episode where his mom went to jail, and the episodes where Karma went to San Francisco, all were season finales ending in cliffhangers and concluded the following fall. You see what I'm saying, folks? That's exactly what Genesis is. That's what I'm explaining here. That's what Genesis is like. It's like a series season finale. It's like a cliffhanger ending that you got in the part 1 of the Deathly Hallows that you're going to get in the first part of the Twilight final story that's coming to theaters. That's sort of what it's like, folks. That's sort of what it's like. Now I end this by saying, again, nothing, and this is from my final post on the Sega.com forums, I say, again, nothing is set in stone. And if Genesis has any answers, it will provide them. So in other words, if Genesis does have some answers and clues and hints as to what the hell's going to happen, or what the hell happened at the end of 225, we will find out. If not, and I end my last detailed posting on the Sega forums with this. I said, but if not, then we and anyone else interested, that includes those that I asked to turn down the volume and not listen to this if they didn't want to be spoiled. If we and anyone else interested, that we, then basically what I said, if not, basically if we don't get no answers in Genesis, then we and anyone else interested will have to wait till October 2011 and issue 230 to get some real clear answers. Basically, folks, what I'm saying, folks, is nothing is set in stone. And again, you can read this in the description box when I post it. Again, what I'm saying, nothing is set in stone. We don't know if she's dead or not. We don't know if she ducked out of the way. Just because we heard a blam blam, just because we saw Sonic with a tear in his eye screaming Sally's name, doesn't mean she's dead. I mean, how many times has this happened in a comic book, in a series, in a television series season finale? How many times has this happened currently in movies? Come on, folks. Be honest with yourself. I mean, I remember watching X-Men 2, X-Men 2, United. They ended that with the Phoenix bird, with the image of the Phoenix bird under that lake. Basically leaving that movie on a cliffhanger, so to speak, for us to come back and see the third one. Folks, what I'm saying is we're not totally sure yet. And unless Ian comes out in the next few days after the previews come out and everybody's allowed to spoil everyone else with their issues that they got already. And if Ian comes out and says that little shadowy part that somebody at one of the message boards pointed out is indeed Sally's corpse and is indeed Sally's body, then we'll probably get an answer. But knowing Ian Flynn, folks, he's not going to give a straight answer. He's not. He's not going to give a straight answer. And I'll tell you why. Because the guy, like any other head writer, folks, whether it's with a novel, whether it's a comic book, or in this case, if you're a screenwriter for a movie, like Harry Potter and Twilight, they want you guessing into that next part. I mean, he basically says in his Newsarama interview, folks, that we pick things up in 2:30. Pick things up where we left off in 2:30. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? Does Genesis have anything to do with this whole situation or not? That's the question a lot of people have, even I. But we won't know. And Ian's not going to give a straight answer. You know that. Paul Kaminsky, who frequently visits the Bumble King forums, he won't give a straight answer. Folks, we cannot come out and celebrate if we're anti-Sally. You cannot come out and celebrate if you're anti-Sally. You can't celebrate just yet, folks. You cannot riot if you're pro-Sally just yet, folks. You can't just go, oh, well, gotta move on if you're neutral. The truth is, folks, we will not know until we get a straight answer, either through the Genesis arc, either from the horse's mouth itself, or into 2:30 in October. Think about that, folks. Think about it. Now, I thank you for listening to this. I apologize for it being in multi-parts. I will hopefully try to post my quotes in the description boxes of both of these videos, these multi-part videos, so you can read them yourself. You can comment down below, folks. But believe me when I tell you, for those of us that are already seen what's going on, those of us that have seen what's going on, I will say this. Let us hold back any emotion we have until we get the straight answer. There's either going to be a riot or anger or rage from the anti-Sally side or the pro-Sally side. But whatever happens, we just have to wait until we get a straight answer, folks. That's all we can do. And that's all I'm going to say for now. But I will say this, folks. I wouldn't be surprised if this leads to Eggman being locked away again. And I wouldn't be surprised if Feist, or Fest, whatever you call him, makes an appearance in 2:30 to pay Eggman back, if you know what I mean. So, that's all I'm going to say about folks. Comment down below. You'll see my quotes of what I posted on the Sega forums and all the other forums in the description box, hopefully. And I will talk to you all later. You all have a good day. Thank you all for listening.